In today's video, I'm breaking down what's likely the most anticipated series of sleeping pads for 2024, the all-new Tensor Series from Nemo Equipment. So Nemo's taken the very popular Tensor series of pads and completely redesigned the pad to now be featured in 3 individual models that are primarily focused on the R value rating to give you the warmth that you need for the type of trip that you're going on and what kind of weight savings you want and such. So what you've got is the Tensor Trail, which is the lowest R value rating, the AllSeason, that is your middle ground R value rating, and then your extreme conditions, that is an 8.5 R value, that is the highest warmth to weight ratio on the market currently. So we're gonna go through each of these pad models, talk about my experience with them, and help you understand which one makes the most sense for you and your backpacking needs. Now, the Tensor Sleeping Pad comes in various sizes and weights, but for the sake of consistency today and comparison, I've got regular wide size pads for all 3 of the pads to talk about today. All right, first up here is the Tensor Trail, which is going to be the most cost-effective option of the Tensor series in the regular wide size. $189 is your price point. For what you get out of this pad, I think that is a very fair price point because it has a lot of technology to it. It is a reliable sleeping pad design that has been tested and tried and true for a very long time. This pad comes in at a weight of 20 ounces for the regular wide size. So weight conscious people are going to like this because it's not excessively heavy and you get a really nice comfort out of the pad as well. Now, I don't think the Tensor pads are the most comfortable pads on the market, but they are plenty comfortable to get really good nights of sleep as a back sleeper, a side sleeper. This pad features a R value of 2.8. So this is gonna be a warm weather sleeping pad that I'm not gonna take down below freezing temperatures in any way. This is a warm weather summer type of pad that's still gonna give me protection from those cold alpine nights when the ground can get really cold, and the single layer of metallized film insulation that's on the inside of the pad is going to help protect you from the cold ground. This is a nice option for those warm weather trips, those times that you want to save weight when taking something that has a much higher R value just doesn't make sense, and it has a tiny pack size. The next up here is the Tensor AllSeason. This is the middle tier option of the Tensor line that has a R value of 5.4. This is a pad that I have the most experience with, of 20 plus nights out with the pad, and it's been a fabulous experience. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. But the 5.4 R value is gonna make it possible for you to really take this down into all sorts of conditions, freezing temperatures, and ensure that you stay nice and comfortable because unlike the Trail, this has 2 layers of insulation, that metallized film that's suspended inside of the pad to give you that full protection and insulation value from the pad. Also has that space frame baffle construction of the pad to give you that comfort aspect, a lot of support, and has a weight of 22 ounces. That is only 2 ounces more in the regular wide version than the Tensor Trail. So you're adding a very minimal weight penalty for a significantly higher R value rating with the AllSeason. The price point for the regular wide is $220. So you're paying that extra amount for that added protection with the insulation, but otherwise this is the same as the Trail, just that increased R value and 2 layers of metallized film on the inside. And the third option here of the Tensor line is the Extreme Conditions model. This is a pad that is highly anticipated and makes some really big claims. It has the highest warmth to weight ratio of any pad on the market that is an inflatable pad like this. That can be controversial because in order to make those claims, it has got to perform. An 8.5 R value is achieved with the 4 layers of suspended metallized film. Now, how this pad is different from the other 2 is the baffle construction is using what Nemo calls an apex baffle as opposed to the space frame baffle. What that means is, as opposed to using a rectangular shaped truss to create the support of the baffle, you have a trapezoidal shaped truss that is used to help the suspended metallized film insulation be able to not fall to the bottom of the pad. So that trapezoidal shape also has smaller cutouts depending on the piece of film that's inside of the pad, so that it's just essentially providing the best performance possible. This pad comes in at a price point for the regular wide at $259. And it has a weight in the regular wide size at 25 ounces. So it's only 3 ounces more than the AllSeason and not that much more expensive. But does this pad make sense for you to get with that really high R value rating? Is it necessary to have all of that insulation value for most of the trips that you and I are going on that are going to be not in really extreme conditions? So keep that in mind as we talk about this a little bit more. Now, the shared characteristics of each pad are going to start with the fabrics that are used in the construction of them. On the top layer, you've got a 20 denier nylon fabric, and your bottom layer of fabric is a 40 denier nylon. So a focus on being as lightweight as possible, but also having the durability that you want out of the pad. So using that 40 denier nylon fabric on the bottom is going to be plenty durable so that this lasts for a long time, but also keeps that weight down and the pack size of the pad smaller as well. On the pads, you also have a new valve style. This valve is a nice update from the previous generation Tensor, where it's not attached to the fabric itself. It's all contained within the inside of the pad, and it just is a lot easier to use. It's a softer material, and it has been reliable and a great update from the previous generation Tensor. But then, as I previously mentioned before, the baffle construction of the pads is the same on the Trail option and the AllSeason, with the space frame baffle construction, and then the extreme conditions using that apex baffle construction that uses that trapezoidal design. The extreme conditions, again, 4 layers of metallized film suspended in the pad for an 8.5 R value. AllSeason is a 5.4 R value with a 2-layer insulation metallized film on the inside of the pad, and a 2.8 R value on the Trail version with 1 layer of metallized insulation suspended inside of the pad. And lastly, each pad has a height of 3.5 inches to make it as comfortable as possible for all different types of sleeping styles. Now I want to talk about my experience with the Tensor line of pads. In 2023, I was able to take and use a sample of the AllSeason version here and put 20+ nights out in the backcountry with the pad. My experience with it was very positive and very enjoyable. This pad, I think, is a wonderful do-it-all, one-and-done purchase option. Do I think, though, that it is the most comfortable pad on the market? No. I do think that there are more comfortable options out there, but this pad still sleeps very nice as a side sleeper and a back sleeper. The space frame baffles are comfortable, but for me and my sleeping style, they're not the most comfortable option. There's a few other pads that I do think are better pads for a comfort standpoint. But what I really like about this pad is the confidence that it gives me with that 5.4 R value. Of all of the nights that I spent out there, the lowest temperatures that I was able to take it down to were the low 20s Fahrenheit for temperature, and I slept warm every single time. And I think that's so important. When you've got a pad like this that has that claimed R value, you need it and you want it to perform. And this has actually done a phenomenal job at keeping me warm down to really cold temperatures for 3-season backpacking. Now, my experience with the extreme conditions model is a bit more limited at 6 nights of sleep on this pad so far in winter conditions, down to the low teens for temperature. And I've been able to sleep plenty warm down to those temperatures. But this pad has some really, really high claims. And that 8.5 R value, I would expect to sleep warm, no problem, when I'm above 0 degrees Fahrenheit in temperature. What I would recommend checking out is my friend Justin Outdoors, who has taken this pad down to some really severe cold temperatures, like negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, out on some winter trips in Canada. And he's got some really interesting thoughts on the performance of this pad, and is a great resource to be able to see how a pad that's designed to perform in really extreme conditions actually performs in those kinds of conditions. So my experience has been positive, but that might not be the case for everybody, depending on how hard you choose to push this pad. What I do think about the extreme conditions model, though, is it probably doesn't make sense for the vast majority of people. I think it's really easy to look at this and go, 8.5 R value, it's got a small pack size, small weight to it, considering that R value. But I think for the most part, more people are gonna be just as happy with the Tensor AllSeason as a better option that saves some weight, still has the same pack size, and doesn't have as much of a high price tag to it than the extreme conditions model. This would be my choice of the 3 pads to get for the vast majority of us that are headed out on our 3-season backpacking trips. That 5.4 R value keeps you plenty warm, and it's still a very high performance sleeping pad. But if you are a very cold sleeper, or you find yourself sleeping on frozen ground very often, then the extreme conditions model probably makes sense for you to invest in. Now, where does the Trail model fit into this whole equation? Like I said earlier, I think that this pad is a phenomenal option for that warm weather backpacker that doesn't want to spend a massive amount of money, but wants the confidence of a high performance sleeping pad that you can take out into the backcountry, know you're going to get a good night of sleep on, and be able to just stay warm enough, but also save as much weight as possible and have a small pack size. This is a really good option, but if you do find yourself kind of expanding your range of backpacking into the shoulder seasons where you're gonna be in freezing temperatures on frozen ground, then I think, again, that the all-season version is the most applicable to the vast majority of backpackers to have the best experience over the most versatile and variety of conditions that you would find yourself in. So what are your thoughts? Which of the Tensor sleeping pads do you think makes the most sense for you and your backpacking needs? Which one did you choose and why? Let me know down in the comments. Hopefully you found this helpful in being able to choose which one makes the most sense if you've been shopping for this pad. But I want to thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you're not. Check out my Patreon page to get a more behind the scenes look at what I'm doing here on the channel. This is hurting my neck. You guys are awesome. We'll catch you on the next one. We'll see you later. Just gonna lay here for a bit and enjoy this until I get freezing cold. See you guys.